Hi everyone, welcome back to the Reclaimed Ranch. My name is Tara. Today we are going to do some pumpkin upcycles, and I have 4 different types of pumpkins that we're going to do. So this first one is just a pumpkin that I got from a thrift store, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the top and the bottom. I'm going to create a hole through the middle, and then I bought this really cool yarn from Joann Fabrics. It's super soft and it has like loops on it. And so I think it's just going to make this pumpkin look so cool and fluffy and fun for the fall decor. So I'm just using my little butter knife here to try and cut through the middle. This is actually a pretty good sized pumpkin. So it was a little bit harder to get in. I've done this before on like the Dollar Tree pumpkins and the smaller ones, but never one this size. So it took a little effort. And of course, this is definitely a messy project, but I'm just going to be using my hot glue gun, and I'm going to be pulling it through the middle and kind of gluing it around the outside all the way around. So this does take a little bit of time to do, but this is great for if you just have a fun show you want to watch or listen to a podcast while you're doing this. And but it turns out so cool, so it's well worth it in the long run. But yeah, it does take some time, only because this one was big. If you have smaller pumpkins, then it does seem to go a little bit quicker. And then I tried to keep my strings as close to each other as possible so that it's really thick and full. Um, you can go a little bit more sparse, but you would probably have to end up painting the pumpkin underneath to match the color. Otherwise, you would kind of see it peeping through. So just a little tip there. Just try and keep them as close as possible. And you don't have to glue the entire row, but just glue enough to keep it tacked down. These pumpkins I actually got on sale at a thrift store. I went to Joann's, and this size pumpkin was like $60, which is totally ridiculous. But look at how fluffy that is. And then I just kept the original stem that it had and hot glued it on. And so the next project we're going to do is I had another size. This is a little bit smaller size, and I wanted to try to do those. They call them like a terracotta pumpkin, and so I'm going to make up my own color, though. I don't want quite that terracotta orangey color. I want more of a deeper taupe, and so I'm just using up old paints that I had. These are chalk paints, so I have like a brown and a cream, and I used some white and red. And it took me a long time to get the color that I wanted, but once I finally got there, it was perfect. So I'm just doing my little mixology here and trying to use up all the stuff that I have already on hand. I don't want to have to go buy new stuff, but I kind of even looked up like how to make this online, this color, but you just got to keep working it until you find the color you want. So I finally found it, and I'm going to go ahead and paint one full coat, let it dry completely. And then once we are dry, we're going to go in with the second coat, but instead of letting it dry completely, I'm going to go right into using flour to put all over the pumpkin. And I'm just going to dump it on and let it sit until it dries. And then we'll use a brush to get the excess off. But you could use baking soda, you can use flour, you can use confection sugar. I mean, just whatever you have in your household cupboards, go ahead and use that instead of having to go out and buy new things for your projects. You can always usually find something around the house that will work for this. So that's my tip for the day. Project number 3 is going to be these cute little twine pumpkins. So I'm just going to take my hand and run the twine around my 4 fingers, and you can put it as thick as you want, as thin as you want. It's always up to you on how you like things. But I like mine kind of a little bit more on the thicker side, so I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to take another little string and just tie them together and cut the excess strings off. And then we're going to do 4 of these, and then we will tie the 4 together and fan it out to make our pumpkin. So for this stem, I have a bunch of sticks that I got from my branches on my trees, and you can use sticks, you can use cinnamon sticks, you can use like some kind of a brown paper bag, kind of twist it up. There's lots of ways to make your own stems. But like I said, I like to try and use things that I already have instead of trying to buy stuff. So tree branches, if you don't have any trees in your yard, maybe your neighbor does. I don't think they'll miss one little branch. So like you can see here, I'm kind of putting those 2 together, fanning them out, and you'll get the idea of what these guys look like. But these are fun. The kids can make these, and they make great fillers for your fall decor. They can be stuck anywhere. You can make different sizes. Like if you don't want the small size of your hand, you can get a piece of cardboard and make them bigger, or you know, whatever size you want. They're fairly easy to make. So I definitely recommend doing this project. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and just hot glue my little stick onto the twine. So I'm going to put it in the middle, but then I'm going to take the twine and I'm going to squish it up around so that you don't see that bead of hot glue. It just kind of hides it and makes it disappear. So the final project, this one I'm not real satisfied with. I had an idea of what it would look like and it kind of came true, but I'm not totally excited about this one, so I might do some changes, but you'll have to let me know what you guys think. So we are going to do paint inlays on this. So what you want to do, this is a paper mache pumpkin, and you can use any pumpkin or anything, but you always want to have your base layer on. So I'm just taking my DIY white swan, and you always want to use a chalk or clay based paint with the paint inlays. So you put your first layer on, let it dry completely, and I always cheat and use my heat gun. But you got to be careful with foam pumpkins and paper mache pumpkins and heat, because they can get destroyed. Just letting you know that. Don't ask me how I know. But this is the inlay called Melange, and I love this inlay. This is a great inlay for beginners. A lot of people seem to be really apprehensive on trying these. I'm telling you, it just takes a little bit of practice, but it's not as hard as you think. So I'm going to cut out the inlays that I want to do. So an inlay is actually paint that you put into paint. So it's not like a transfer, it's not a sticker. It's just basically you put a layer of paint and then you lay the inlay down and let it dry, and then when you take it off, it has the paint on your project. So we're going to go ahead, and what I'm doing here is I'm trying to cut it a little bit close to my actual image, because the less extra white paper you have on your inlay, the less chance you're going to have, or what we call panty lines. It's where you can kind of see the outline of your image in the paint. So if you can get it as close as possible, then that helps decrease that chance. And so what we'll do is we just cut them out, and then I get a piece of like plastic paper I'm going to lay my inlays paint side down on this plastic. I'm going to wet it with my mister. If you don't have a mister, you can always use like a squirt bottle on the finest setting as possible, or a damp rag. But you want to wet the papers before applying. That way that will open the fibers in the paper, and that's going to help you decrease the chance of getting wrinkles and things like that in your inlay. So this is that part there. So I'm laying them face side down, which is the paint side down. And then once I get them all laid out, you don't have to completely soak them, just enough to cover the entire inlay. And then I'll let that sit while I'm adding my second layer of paint on my pumpkin. And that way, by the time I get that ready, it's going to be more pliable and easier to place onto my pumpkin, especially with all the ridges and stuff. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just do a section at a time. So I'm going to add a layer of paint. You don't want your paint too thick either. You want just a nice even coat. If you get it too thick, then that's where your panty lines come in. And then I'm just going to place my inlay down and make sure to go from like the inside or the middle out, and try and get it into all of those little divots and creases. I'm just using my finger and a shop towel, because typically you'll want to use like a brayer roller if you're on a flat surface. That way it gets all those bubbles out. But you just got to do what you got to do, right? So we're going to just use my fingers and a shop towel. And I actually messed up on one of them. It's not really messed up, but I'm going to show you how you can go back and fix it. So again, we're going to just lay it down straight and kind of work your way from the middle to the outside. And this is just putting your paint inside that white paint. So if it's a little dry, just add a little bit more paint. Otherwise, when you go to take it off, it's not going to have any paint there. And then you always want to mist it again once you're done with it. Or like I said, if you don't have a mister bottle, you can use like a washcloth that's wet, or something that's wet, to get it to go down into the surfaces there. And we're just going to work our way around the pumpkin. And then once we get all of those on, I'm going to let it dry completely. So this, I usually don't use my heat gun on, because I want that paint to sit on there and dry naturally. That way it'll have a better chance of adhering. So once it's completely dry, it turns like a really light color. And then you'll take either your washcloth, your wet washcloth, or your mister bottle, you spray it again, leave it for a little bit, and then you can release the inlay from the pumpkin. right, so now it's time to take those off. So again, I'm going to spray it, leave it for a little bit. I sprayed a little too much on there, and then we're going to pull down slowly and then let the magic happen. But see here, that left side, I didn't get down into the ridge, and so the paint did not adhere. So what I'm going to do is, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my little paintbrush and add just a tiny bit of paint in there, trying not to get it onto the actual flower image that's already there. And then I'm just going to place it right back on where it was, push it down into the groove there on both sides. And then I'm going to get impatient and use my heat gun, which it worked, but first we'll take off all the other ones. But again, you just wet it again, and if it doesn't seem to be coming off completely, just wet it again and let it sit for maybe 10 to 20 seconds before peeling off the bottom or the inlay. So again, I'm just going to lift, and a lot of times you'll get like a distressed look to it, and that's what I love about these inlays. Especially on a curved surface like this, it's going to be a little bit more distressed than on a flat surface. But for the most part, if you get all of your inlay flush and down into that paint, you'll have a nice crisp image. So here's where I took my heat gun and took it off, and it worked. So that's one tip, again, that you can, don't worry if it doesn't come off completely. You can always replace it back on and do it again. So I thought the top of it was a little dull, so I'm going in with IOD's transfer called Fairy Tale Florals, and it had a really pretty blue and black border with these florals, and I thought, well, let's keep the theme of the flowers and put this around the top. And then after I did that, I was thinking, like, in between, because I like a lot of like fullness to my images on my pumpkins. So in between it was a little sparse, so I didn't really know what to do. I didn't have an inlay that would go in between those, that skinny, so I ended up just drawing some vines with leaves, and that's really the part I don't like. I don't know. Let me know, you guys, what you think I should do in the comments. I don't really want to start over, but if I have to, I will repaint and try something different. So this is the part that I didn't really like. I don't know. It just seems like it's kind of like a hodgepodge of stuff put together. So I think I definitely need to paint the stem, because I did not do that. But if you guys have any ideas for salvaging this guy, or if you think it looks okay, let me know in the comments below. If I need to, what I can do is just put some joint compound over it with some cinnamon and make it a stone effect and call it good. So look at this pumpkin. It's so fluffy and soft. I love it. I think it turned out great. I love this type of yarn, so I think I'm going to be doing more of these pumpkins for the store. And this is going to be my favorite. I love this look of having something maybe sit outside in the weather for a while. And I like the color it turned out to be. It's not quite a purple, it's not quite a terracotta, it's, kind of in between, which I think is gorgeous. So, let me know what your guys' favorite is for this video, and I will see you back on Tuesday. Or I think we've had some comments that people wanted to start doing some holidays, so we'll see what we can find and